Hello YouTube, it is your boy B3, back with another kicking graphic novel review. Today we are looking at something from Image Comics and The Massive Verse. The Massive Verse, of course, being a Western Henshin Hero Tokusatsu-inspired comic book universe. Yes, I think I've reviewed the first volume of Radiant Black. If I haven't, that's on me. But, I've been meaning to do Volume 2 of Radiant Black for a while, but I just really wanted to read Rogue Sun Volume 1 recently. I just specifically really wanted to read that. So I did. Rogue Sun Volume 1 is what we got today. It doesn't have, like, a subtitle or anything. Since it's the first volume for this character ever, it doesn't need to be called something like Rogue Sun Volume 1, like Father, like Son. Rogue Sun, Volume 1, Enter the Massive Verse. Rogue Sun, Volume 1, Patricide. It doesn't it doesn't need to be called anything like that, because it's the first Rogue Sun book, you know? But it is pretty cool. So there's a veteran hero called Rogue Sun who's been operating for years. And he... well, let me just read you the back of the book. Yesterday, New Orleans' greatest hero, Rogue Sun, was murdered. Today, rebellious teen Dylan Siegel discovers that Rogue Sun was his estranged father Marcus, and that he's inherited his father's mantle. Tasked with protecting our world from the forces of the supernatural and solving his father's murder, Dylan will be forced to come to terms with the man he spent the majority of his life hating. From acclaimed writer Ryan Parrott, who worked on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Dead Day. I'm not as familiar with Dead Day. I know the Dead Lucky, but I don't know Dead Day. But Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is also a Henshin Hero book, so it makes sense that he was brought on to do this. Anyway, acclaimed writer Ryan Parrott and rising star artist Abel, who worked on Harley Quinn, Crimes of Passion, and Harley Quinn and Crimes of Passion, comes a supernatural murder mystery that explores the complicated bond between father and son and cements itself squarely in a corner of the Massive Verse. God, I love Henshin Heroes. And it collects Rogue Sun number 1 through 6, plus some supplementary material. Rated T for Teen from Image Comics. So, let's get into it. There's something called the Sunstone that gives Rogue Sun his suit and his powers. He can't use his powers unless he's suited up in classic Henshin Hero style, you know? But this original Rogue Sun fights this kind of cloaked, caped being who knows his identity and kills him pretty effortlessly. And the whole time you're reading this book, you're like, damn, they killed him so effortlessly. You know? How is a new Rogue Sun going to even stand up to this person? And you'll just have to find out, because we're not there yet. But, you know, we have an issue. Because the new one, the new Rogue Sun, he's just a teen. He's a teen, and he's a bit of a bully. You know, he makes others do his homework for them via intimidation. He's not really punching anyone. He's maybe like pushing him down, shoving him in lockers, but he's not being as violent as many comic book bullies would be. He's not like stealing from them. Yeah, he's a bully, straight up. And the book does say that. They're like, he is a bully. He's not as bad as other bullies, but he is one, you know? Which is good. It's not good that he's a bully, but it's good that he's got a lot of room for character growth. Thank God for indie comics. Anyway, his girlfriend doesn't want to be with him anymore because he's a jerk. And he finds out his dad dies. And he and his mom are both like, thank God, that dude sucks. Really sucks. Left him completely left him when he was just an infant. Left the mom after 6 months of being off superheroing. He comes home and he's like, I don't love you anymore. I'm walking out on you and our son. I want a divorce. And his mom was like, at first I thought it was because he wanted to keep us safe. I tried to rationalize it to myself, you know. I was like, oh, something happened in his superhero life and it must have been really horrible, and now he doesn't want to have a family to expose that to. It's to keep us safe. But then he like remarried and had 2 more kids. And it never fully, this seems like something did happen that's going unsaid. And it never really explains it, at least not in this volume. I'm sure it will down the line. We'll get some more specifics on what happened during those 6 months and why he really left. But he is a huge asshole. So then and his mom, they go meet the family, you know. And the new wife actually seems really nice. They're pretty rich, quite rich. She does quite well for herself, and after he left, his father kind of did quite well for himself too. And the 2 kids are both like really intelligent. The boy has a lot of Damian Wayne vibes. He talks just like Damian Wayne. He even looks just like Damian Wayne. He's very clearly inspired by Damian. And then the daughter is also like this super genius person, and they are both hoping that the Sunstone gets left to them in the will. But it's not left to them. It's left to Dylan. And Dylan doesn't even know what it is. But he's like, oh, like, it was explained to him that his dad was a superhero, but he did not know exactly what the Sunstone was. He knew who Rogue Sun was, didn't know what the Sunstone was. Then there's this villain called Suave. He's like, got this very fancy rapier and this really nice suit and one of those like full face mirror masks. You know, he's robbing places to get these artifacts, which aren't totally explained to us yet. And he just kicks Rogue Sun's ass. But then the original Rogue Sun shows up, not in costume or anything. He's a ghost inside the Sunstone. And so apparently, whenever a Rogue Sun dies with the suit active, their soul gets stored within it so that they can teach the next Rogue Sun how to be Rogue Sun. And then they can eventually leave and move on to the afterlife when they choose. And Dylan, of course, does not want his estranged father, who walked out on them, to be in his head telling him what to do. He does not want that at all. He hates it. This is the only real interaction he's had with his father since he was an infant. And it's his dad telling him, you're not good enough. You need to listen to me. I wasn't there for you, but now I want you to punch a dude. And there's like a vampire werewolf that he has to fight. And a while back, I wrote a short story with a vampire werewolf in it. And now I'm like, fuck. But it's like a hillbilly vampire werewolf. So 3 of the scariest things in horror movies. Werewolves, vampires, and hillbillies. But, you know, Rogue Sun is really having trouble fighting this guy. And he's like the runt of the litter for werewolf, vampire, hillbillies. It's not great. And these other 2 siblings don't want him to be Rogue Sun. The daughter tries to help him out a little. The son doesn't really want anything to do with him. There's so much going on here. And it turns out the way Rogue Sun gets rid of these superpowered beings that they can't throw in prison, there's this woman who stores them away. She has this, like, chandelier, and she puts them in these, like, diamond pocket dimensions, hangs them on the chandelier. They can observe what's going on outside of it, but they can't escape unless someone from the outside helps them. It's not possible. And it's not like she's... You can remember in the early seasons of The Flash, he's just sticking villains in the bottom of Star Labs. Super unethical. It is kind of like that. It doesn't really super seem like she has any authority to do this. Like, she's not some secret government agent, and this isn't like a secret prison that's secret so that people won't be able to find the villains. It just seems like she's a woman that has the ability to do this, so she does it. Kind of like Rogue Sun, who is technically a vigilante. So, it turns out Dylan's dad, Marcus, his number one suspect for his murderer is his youngest son, which immediately makes me think it's not his youngest son. It immediately makes me think that. You know how comic books are. The first person they want you to think is the culprit's not going to be it. You know? And it wasn't. His son was doing some shady stuff, but it was to get these fancy herbs from another dimension, and he really wanted to bring his father back to life. You know? Really loved his dad, even though he was a huge jerk. And there's like this druid that Rogue Sun has to fight because of it. And the druid tells him that the actual culprit is someone close to him, which immediately makes me think the sister. But then there's no... right after that happens, I was like, oh, of course, it must be the sister. And then immediately we find out that the sister stole one of the diamonds that had one of her father's old rogues in it, like this demon woman that sucks out souls, and it makes her younger and more powerful. You know, not a type of villain you've never seen before, but there's a lot of like this mythology that's just hinted at, that's not fully explained to us, and I actually think that's very interesting. They can bring these villains out of nowhere, and they don't have to explain them, because they're just the old Rogue Sun's villains. And it's like, yeah, that works. It's a really interesting way to just have whatever kind of villain you want without having to really explain them and how they fit into the world and stuff. They're just an older hero's villains coming back. You know? Because everything he's fought so far has been something that Rogue Sun himself has fought. Like, he's fought the werewolf clan that the vampire werewolf was from, and he's fought this demon woman. But it shows his daughter in this mask, and once again, it's like really forceful. So for a bit, I believed it was the daughter. But then the daughter, like, we find out that she bound this demon so that the demon can't actually kill anybody. She just wants her to defeat Rogue Sun so that she can get the Sunstone. And you're, like, as you're reading, you're like, oh, it's not her either. So who's left? The moms. Both moms. But that's really easy to narrow down really quickly. So, if you're really paying attention and you've read a lot of comics and know how comic authors often frame these mysteries, you can figure out it's the mom. It's done a little better than in a lot of books. In most comics, whoever the new character is the new villain, but everyone here is a new character. It's a new hero in his first book. Everybody's new, you know? It's actually really interesting. And the mom, being the villain who killed his dad, getting magic powers from this force that we've sort of seen, but not really, it's just incredibly interesting. But I don't want to get too much into that because it's really great. The dynamic between Dylan, his deceased dad, and his mom, who seems to have given her soul to a supervillain to get powers, specifically so she could kill his dad. There's a lot going on here, and the dialogue is pretty amazing. It's really good, guys. You should read this book. It's really good. So, like, she explains her motivations beyond the obvious, you know. And they're both trying to get Dylan to do what they want him to do. It's kind of just this big exaggerated version of what happens when a lot of parents get divorced and don't have an amicable relationship after. And remember earlier I said, how is Rogue Sun supposed to stand up to this villain that could one-shot his experienced father? It's because she has no intention of actually hurting him. Because she's his mom. You know? And sure, I only figured out it was going to be his mom like 2 pages before it actually happened. So I feel like most readers might not see it coming. In indie books, you can get away with pretty much anything. Corporate comics will make you return to the status quo, will bring everyone back to life. In indie books, you never know what's going to happen. So cool. But yeah, he ends up having to lock his mom away and go live with his dad's other family, which has to be awkward. And there's so much emotion in all of this. It's really intense. It's really, really intense. Intense story, great art, super cool costume. I would get an action figure of him in an instant. Actually, all the massive first heroes, the Dead Lucky, Rogue Sun, all the Radiants, Infernal Girl Red. I need them all. Please. Somebody. But yeah, that's it. One thing I didn't mention, though, is he loses his dad at the end of this. Because he said, when I help you catch your killer, you have to move on to the afterlife. I don't want you in my head anymore. And he's like, but I have barely begun your training. I can't do that. And he was like, promise. And he was like, okay, I promise. And then he tried to break that promise immediately after catching it. He was like, I'm not going to leave. But then Dylan, like, berated him until he did. But at the end of this, we see that Dylan does want him back. Because now he feels even more alone than ever. And you gotta feel bad for him. There's just so much amazing stuff in this book. So many great character moments that I just couldn't get around the mentioning. And many that I didn't want to mention, even though they're great, because I want you guys to read these yourselves. Yes, these reviews are full of spoilers, but God, I want you to read these yourself. Such great books. And, you know, my channel is built on kaiju and dinosaurs and ancient heroes. A lot of my viewers are ancient hero fans, and I think a lot of you would really love the Massive Verse. It's all based on all that tokusatsu stuff we love, you know? Power Rangers, Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, Ultraman, Metal Heroes, you know, Gridman, Mirror Man, Silver Kamen. It's just great stuff. But that is it. Thank you all very much for your support. Please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. And definitely remember to read Rogue Sun, Volume 1 from Image Comics and the Massive Verse. Definitely look up a Massive Verse reading order. That'll really help you. So that's it. Thank you all once again. I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.